Om Narayatimidamdasya Jananjana Salakaya Chakshurumritam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayamrupakata Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Mukam Karoti Vachalam Bhambo Langayate Girim Yatpripa Tamam Mande Sri Gurum Dinacharinam. So we're reading from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 12, text number 20. Is that right? No, not there. So you can open up your handheld device, go to database.io and select Bhagavad Gita, and then Bhagavad Gita chapter 12, and then Bhagavad Gita chapter 12, text 20. Is it there now?
Do you want me to do it?
No. Let's just recite the version. Yetu dharmamritam idam.
Yetu dharmamritam idam.
Yatoktam paryupasate.
Yatoktam paryupasate.
Swadharmana matparama.
Swadharmana matparama.
Bhaktaste tiva me priyaha.
Bhaktaste tiva me priyaha.
Yetu dharmamritam idam.
Yetu dharmamritam idam.
Yatoktam paryupasate.
Yatoktam paryupasate.
Swadharmana matparama.
Shraddadana matparama.
Bhaktaste tiva me priyaha.
Bhaktaste tiva me priyaha. Yetu dharmamritamidam.
Yetu dharmamritamidam.
Yato kritam paryupasate.
Yato kritam paryupasate.
Shraddadana matparama.
Shraddadana matparama.
Bhaktaste tiva me priyaha.
Bhaktaste tiva me priyaha.
Yetu dharmamritam idam.
Yetu dharmamritam idam.
Yatoktam prayupasate.
Yatoktam paryupasate.
Shraddhadana matparama.
Shraddadana matparama.
Bhaktaste tiva me priyaha.
Bhaktaste tiva me priyaha.
Yetu dharmamritam idam.
Yatoktam paryupasate.
Shraddhadana matparama.
Bhaktaste tiva me priyaha.
Yetu dharmamritam idam. Yatoktam paryupasate. Shraddhadana matparama. Bhaktaste tiva me priyaha.
Yea,
Yea,
those who,
those who,
to,
but,
dharma,
Dharma
of religion,
of religion.
amritam,
amritam,
nectar,
Nectar.
idam,
idam,
this,
this,
yatha,
Yatha.
as,
uktam,
Uktam.
said,
said,
paryupasate,
Paryupasate.
completely engaged,
Completely engaged.
shraddhanaha,
Shraddhana.
with faith,
With faith.
matparamaha,
Matparamaha.
taking me,
Taking me.
the Supreme Lord,
The Supreme Lord.
as everything.
as everything.
Bhaktaha,
Bhaktaha,
devotees.
devotees.
Te,
Te,
they. Ativa,
ativa,
very, very.
very, very.
May,
May,
to me.
to me.
Priyaha,
Priyaha,
dear.
dear.
Those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me. Purport. In this chapter, from verse 2 through the end, from Maya Veshya Mano Ye Mam, fixing the mind on me, through Ye Tu Dhammamritamidam, this religion of eternal engagement. The Supreme Lord has explained the processes of transcendental service for approaching Him. Such processes are very dear to the Lord, and He accepts a person engaged in them. The question of who is better, one who is engaged in the path of impersonal Brahman, or one who is engaged in the personal service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was raised by Arjuna. And the Lord replied to him so explicitly that there is no doubt that devotional service to the Personality of Godhead is the best of all processes of spiritual realization. In other words, in this chapter, it is decided that through good association, one develops attachment for pure devotional service and thereby accepts a bona fide spiritual master, and from him begins to hear and chant and observe the regulated principles of devotional service with faith, attachment, and devotion. And thus becomes engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord. This path is recommended in this chapter. Therefore, there is no doubt that devotional service is the only absolute path for self-realization, for the attainment of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The impersonal conception of the Supreme Absolute Truth, as described in this chapter, is recommended only up to the time one surrenders himself for self-realization. In other words, as long as one does not have the chance to associate with a pure devotee, the impersonal conception may be beneficial. In the impersonal conception of the Absolute Truth, one works without fruitive result, meditates and cultivates knowledge to understand spirit and matter. This is necessary as long as one is not in the association of a pure devotee. Fortunately, if one develops directly a desire to engage in Krishna consciousness in pure devotional service, he does not need to undergo step-by-step improvements in spiritual realization. Devotional service, as described in the middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, is more congenial. One need not bother about materials to keep body and soul together, because by the grace of the Lord, everything is carried out automatically. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 12th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of devotional service. So, This is the last verse in the middle 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita that describe bhakti. The first 6 chapters focus on karma, different levels of karma, to Naishkam Karma Yoga, which is a detached position of a yogi who acts ultimately without attachment to the result. And of course, Srila Prabhupada explains that the best yogi in that regard is one who engages in service to Krishna, serves Krishna, without attachment to the results of their activities. And everything is offered, ultimately offered to the Lord. Yat karosi, yadashanasi, yajjujosi, dahasi, yat. Right, this is in the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which is right in the middle of the Bhagavad, right in the middle. A lot of very clear and concise, unequivocal instructions contained within the middle 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita that confirm that service to Krishna, devotional service, and devotional service has certain characteristics, certain qualities. And what's the highest is that service which is rendered without any consideration of return. Anya Bilashita Sunyam, free from Jnana Kama Janamritam, free from a desire for knowledge or learning, free from a desire for getting some material benefit. Although it's very interesting for one who engages in bhakti or devotional service free from these desires, they still are given knowledge and learning, and very often given material benefits. Right? Krishna says, I look after my devotees. So, but a devotee doesn't engage in devotional service for those things. He'll happily engage in service to Krishna because, and without any motivation broadly other than to please Krishna. Now, most of us, even though we inherently, innately have a relationship with Krishna, most of us don't know what that is. Right? And very interesting, the very advanced devotees don't even reveal it. It's considered a poor show, or it's considered inappropriate behaviour to reveal one's personal spiritual realizations in public with others. Right? No showing off. No show-offs. Right? It's considered, making even there are injunctions. There are injunctions that one don't reveal one's mala. Right? In other words, one doesn't make a big show of one's devotional practice. I remember I had one friend of mine who had such a big set of Tulsi Mala that the bead bag that he kept his beads in made him look like he was heavily overweight. Yeah. Sometimes we find exceptions to the rule, which prove the rule, right? But generally, a devotee who's engaged in Krishna's service is protected by Krishna. Krishna mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I preserve what they lack, or carry what they lack, and I preserve what they have. So, a devotee may, in the closeness of their association, of their connection with Krishna, may have a deep spiritual connection. And Krishna says here, they are very, very dear to me, right? Ativa me bhakta ativa me priyaha. Those devotees. And what's the characteristic? What's the quality? If we look at the verse, they follow the Dharma. Right? And enjoy the experience they get pleasure out of serving Krishna. They're completely engaged with faith, and they take Krishna as their supreme Lord, as everything. What is it here? Mat Paramaha. So, we can still be elevated to this same platform. We may not be aware of our relationship with Krishna, it will gradually be revealed, but that relationship is manifest practically in our connection with the spiritual master. The relationship with the spiritual master is described in the Shastra as being as good as one's relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so it's interesting, in the 18th chapter, Krishna says, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Braja. It says you have to surrender to me. And in chapter 4, text 34, the secret of how to surrender to Krishna is revealed early on in the Bhagavad Gita. And that is, one has to approach a devotee. Or in ISKCON, not just a devotee, but many devotees. Right? Which can be a little confusing. Right? Actually, it's interesting. We're meant to take initiation from one. Generally, Prabhupada says one who's a Siksha Guru will take on the role of the Diksha Guru, but not always. And in the beginning of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj says in his first prayer, Vande Gurun. I offer my obeisances to my gurus. Not just to my initiating guru, but we have so many gurus who help us make advancement in Krishna consciousness. And qualification is, they need to have these characteristics. Prabhupada says, be a pure devotee. And how do we determine? Here. They follow the path of bhakti. They completely engage themselves with faith. making Krishna everything, they're everything, and as a consequence, adhere to Krishna. So, rare, it's very rare, in the Nectar of Devotion it's described, very rare that one will have a direct relationship with God. Who's the example? Here's a test. How many, hands up those of you who have read the Nectar of Devotion? Sure you want to put your hand up? Okay, good. Honest. Let's see how. And look, the Nectar of Devotion has got a lot of information in it, so you can have read it. You can have read it and forgotten half of it, and it's okay. Right. But who's the example of a devotee who gets a direct connection with Krishna, with Lord Vishnu? Who is it? Very rare. It's described as a very rare occasion. Who is it? Starts with a up? Yes. She's read the Nectar of Devotion. Or it was a fluke. No, I shouldn't have a joke. Dhruva Maharaj. Yes, Dhruva Maharaj got Krishna's mercy directly with the touch of the conch, or Lord Vishnu. Right? But broadly speaking, we don't get that direct connection. How do we get the connection? How do we get the connection to Krishna?
Spiritual masters and other gurus.
Through the devotees. Yes. Brahmanda Bhumite Kona Bhagavana Jeev Guru Krishna Prasad Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. We get the seed of bhakti from the Guru, right? But how many of us have met, how many of us got that seed directly from our initiating gurus? How many of us? Raise your hands if you got that seed. Oh, okay, first question is, how many of you have received that Bhakti Lata Bij? The seed of bhakti within the heart. Raise your hands if you think you received it. 2 people, 3 people. Okay, what are you other guys doing?
How do you know? How do you know you received that seed?
Do you chant Hare Krishna?
Yes.
That's a good start. That's a good symptom. Yeah, do you do service? How many, hands up, all of you who like to do service? Okay, you got the seed of bhakti. You may not know it, but you've got it. Do you expect anything in return?
No.
Not yes,
No. What about if they didn't give you prasadam? Would you keep coming back? Huh? Maybe. Or we could go in the kitchen and make sure the prasadam has been properly prepared and offered and distributed. We're actually, broadly, we're into distribution, not consumption. So, in my personal experience, I didn't meet Srila Prabhupada. I certainly didn't meet Krishna. Some of the devotees that I first met were not practicing. They were preaching. You find this, sometimes devotees are apostate. You know what apostate means? Apostate. Let's look it up, shall we? Apostate. apostate. See, it's very interesting because in apostate is the word apostle. Right? And if you don't have it, and apostle in Christian terminology is a very important word, right? Because it describes the followers of Jesus, the apostles. They're like disciples. Apostle means, yeah. But here, apostate means a person who has renounced, abandoned, or formally disaffiliated from their religious faith. Right? Interesting, huh? Apostate. Formally disaffiliated from their religious faith, political party, or previously held principles. Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? So, some of the devotees that I met, they increased my faith, but they weren't following. But because they were repeating the words that were Prabhupada's teachings, that it had an impact. Had an impact on me. Yeah. So, what to speak of those devotees who were following? Right? So, where are we? So even though we may not have met Srila Prabhupada, we may not have met Krishna, right? Because we've met the devotees, and we listen to them, and we were inspired by their example, and we got the good fortune of being able to chant Hare Krishna, to render some service, to see the deities, to honour prasada, to hear the philosophy. And so, as a result of that association, that's what Prabhupada says here, if one develops directly a desire to engage in Krishna consciousness in pure devotional service, previous. This is necessary. So in this 12th chapter, there are a number of steps given early on in the first 10 verses that describe activities that will gradually purify one and help qualify one to become a devotee or to make advancement in spiritual practice. Cultivating, learning, working and giving up the results, giving in charity to others. These are kind of pious activities. But Prabhupada says here, that's not necessary if you meet a pure devotee, right? Or here. As long as one is not in the association of a pure devotee, then those things will be beneficial. But when one meets the devotees, it's not necessary. One gets the inspiration from the association of the devotees to directly engage in devotional service. Right? Have you had that experience? Yeah, that's what we're doing. Very unlikely, unless it's an accident, or not an accident, but Krishna's arrangement, that you happen to be here in a Bhagavad Gita class, and it just came about by chance. We engage in these activities because we know that's what the Chaitanya Vaishnavas do. That's what the Gaura Bhaktas, And so, Prabhupada says here, one develops directly a desire to engage in Krishna consciousness in pure devotional service. He does not need to undergo step-by-step improvements in spiritual realization. Huh? And so these are the qualifications we need to cultivate. Be engaged as a devotee. Completely engaged. Right? Make Krishna the supreme goal, and then as a result of that mood of bhakti, nadanam, najanam, nothing material. I'm not interested in material things. I'm not even interested necessarily in cultivating knowledge or learning, although they'll automatically come. And in that right attitude or in that right mood, a devotee becomes very, very dear to Krishna. First of all, one becomes dear to the devotees, one becomes dear to the spiritual master, the initiating guru, and the Siksha gurus. And then because we're accepted by the devotees, then Krishna accepts us. Pretty simple process. So, that's why we have to be respectful pretty much to all devotees, because all of them can be an inspiration, not just to the person who might initiate us. And why Krishnadas Kaviraj in the beginning of the Chaitanya Charitamrita offers his obeisances to all of his gurus. Because in one sense all of the devotees are gurus, because they teach by example. So, the 12th chapter is very important, because in the beginning, Arjuna asks, and it's interesting in the context, Arjuna's just, what was the experience that Arjuna had in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the chapter before? What broad experience did Arjuna have? He saw the universal form. How did he feel about that?
He got scared.
Hmm?
He got scared.
And so what did he ask for?
Come back into valid form.
Yes, let me just see you as Krishna. Right? That was his attraction. And so, and the Bhagavad Gita is very much a basic text. And Arjuna is acting as Krishna's first disciple in order to re-establish a parampara, which had been lost. Krishna mentions in the 4th chapter, the parampara has been lost. And so to re-establish some of the basic teachings of the parampara, Arjuna is asking questions as a disciple to clarify some of the important primary aspects of bhakti, or of learning. Let's forget about bhakti. It's just of spiritual knowledge, spiritual practice. Right? So, especially in India, we see it. There's sometimes an emphasis on the impersonal feature of the Brahman. And that's enough, the antithesis of how Arjuna feels in his relationship with Krishna. He's not interested at all in the impersonal manifestation of the Brahman. He wants to see, as a result of his experiencing the external manifestation in the universal form, which was shocking and horrifying for Arjuna, he wanted to see Krishna in his personal form. So in order to establish this principle of the personality of Godhead, as opposed to the impersonal, the Brahman, that which exists everywhere and everything is formless, tasteless, touchless, right? Very difficult even to conceive of, what to speak of perceive, right? So Arjuna poses the question, and Krishna reveals clearly the engagement in the process of bhakti with the mood of cultivating a personal relationship with Krishna is more pleasing to Krishna and actually easier than the cultivation of the impersonal Brahman. Before I met the devotees, and maybe also, you may admit to this also, but even as a Christian, brought up in the Christian tradition, and even though we pray our Father, right? Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. At least in the Anglican tradition, there are never any pictures of our Father. And then, the pictures of the Son of the Father is always him being on a cross, nailed to a cross, So there's not a lot of information about the personality. He's a father, and the relationship. What's your relationship? When I was a kid, my relationship with my dad was, give me my pocket money. My father, mum and dad never liked television or commercial anything really. My mum didn't like Mother's Day, right? And I asked Mum, why not? She said it's just David Jones and Maya and Jamie Hi-Fi and everyone trying to sell his stuff. So my parents were very anti-commercialism. They thought it was cheating, a form of cheating. So, I've forgotten. I wandered off into a story now. I can't remember why I started it. Doesn't matter. It'll come back. So, anyway.
You're talking about Jesus, Anglican.
Yeah, I know where I'm going, broadly. Got to be careful about detours. That's right, yeah. So, my dad had a rule, because I used to listen to the commercial radio stations a lot. I was into pop music. It was the Beatles and Rolling Stones and whatever. So that was our connection to pop culture. Right? But if my dad caught us singing commercials off the radio, I'd get docked 5 cents. Okay, 5 cents off your pocket money. And I only got 20 cents. Actually, in those days, it was still shillings and pence. Right, so it's 6 pence off. So anyway, that is a piece of trivia. But later on, when I was questioning my faith, I started reading literature about Hinduism and Buddhism and other spiritual culture. And but primarily that literature focused on the impersonal, the formless, the all-powerful, all-pervading Brahman. Right? This is And this is commonly presented as the tradition, as the culture of Hinduism, impersonalism. So I was affected by that. I thought I should become a yogi, and then so I thought I'll become a yogi, and then I'll realise, because and then the teaching is that in quality we're the same as God, so we're as good as God, right? And of course we follow that philosophy too, but in a slightly nuanced fashion. So I was thinking, yep, if I become a yogi, then I'll realise that I'm God, and then I'll be as good as God. Any of you thought that you might like to do that? Become God? I tried, but it didn't work. So one day, I was in a friend's house, and I opened up the Nectar of Devotion. And I thought, oh, let's see what the Hare Krishnas are up to, right? And then on the page that I opened up to, it said, Krishna is the Supreme Brahman, and he plays in the land of Brajabhumi with his friends and the cows. I read the river. And he's blue, right? He's a blue boy. And I'm thinking, whoa, that's far out. These Hare Krishnas think they know everything, right? And here's a description of God. They know what his colour is, they know where he lives, and who he plays with. But that from I was thinking God's impersonal. And then I hear about how much of a person he is. It was too much. It was a freak out. So it took me some time to come to terms with the fact that there's a person, and in our understanding of the Supreme Brahman, yes, there is the Brahman, the energy, the all-pervading, all-powerful aspect, the impersonal aspect of God. Yes, it exists, right? But then there's also the person from whom that Brahman is the effulgence, actually. It's the brilliance of God's form. And it's interesting, in the Upanishad, the devotee is praying, please remove that effulgence so I can see your lotus feet, right? So I can see your form. So for the devotee, the most attractive element is not the Brahman, right? In fact, that's considered to be a distraction, right? It's a distraction. And so in the Upanishad, the devotee says, please remove that effulgence so I can see your lotus feet, right? And of course, if you can see the lotus feet, then you'll see his ankles, his calves, his knees, his thighs, his hips, etc., until we come to the smiling face, right? Which is the Bhagavata, right? But first cantos, the feet, and so forth. And as we proceed through the various cantos, we're gradually building and developing an understanding of the personhood, if you like. Right. So it's very interesting, in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, the personal feature is more important than the impersonal. The source. And a devotee is one who, it doesn't mean there are other practices that can be performed to purify and to elevate one to the path of spiritual advancement. But if one meets the devotees, and even if you're not qualified, but you meet the devotees and are inspired by that association, and then following in their footsteps, encouraged by that example, then you don't need to worry about all of the other purificatory processes, because automatically, as a result of performing bhakti or devotional service, one, even though not qualified, becomes qualified and is elevated. Right? And that's what Krishna is saying here at the end of the 12th chapter, and Prabhupada's confirming. There may be some advantage in having an impersonal conception. It's not a bad thing, that God exists and He's all powerful and He's everywhere. That conception is good. But better is to understand the person, why we worship the deity, in fact, right? To understand that person, why we worship the Bhagavad Gita, why we worship the Bhagavatam, especially. How do we worship the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam? How do we worship them? Hearing. Yeah, hearing. We don't get the incense out. You can. But more practical is, and Krishna says at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, one worships me with their intelligence. And that's what we need to purify. Our discrimination, the ability to discriminate between matter and spirit is sharpened, right? By hearing this knowledge, hearing this. And we do that in the association of devotees. Why we should respect all devotees in that regard. So, many other points, but I think we can finish here. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Or thoughts? Yeah.
Krishna says,
Yes.
I carry what they lack.
Yes.
I understand I present what they have. Can you emphasize, please, on I carry what they lack?
Trying to think of an example. Well, Srila Prabhupada went to America with 40 rupees. It's very interesting, actually, that when Prabhupada returned to India, he used that same 40 rupees to pay for the taxi. He went to the Chippiwada temple. So, 40 rupees. How many of you would travel? I assume that you've come from India, most of you, right? How many of you would come to Australia with only 40 rupees? Huh? No. No way.
Not even $1.
You came without $1, right? No. Yeah. So it's very interesting to see that Prabhupada came to America with his faith in Krishna, pretty much. Right? And spent at least the first 6 months, if not the first 12 months, just observing the country, the people. How do the people walk, talk, sit? How do they think? Really important. So Krishna gave Srila Prabhupada, what did Krishna say? Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pratipurukam tadami buddhiyogam tam. Is that right? I can't remember the last line. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pratipurukam tadami buddhiyogam tam. Something upayanti te, isn't it? Upayanti, which is here also in this verse. No. So anyway, Krishna says, I give them the knowledge by which they can come to me. Right? Tesham satata yuktanam. Dadami, I give. Buddhi, the intelligence. Right? So very often a devotee may not have all of the material facility or all the material ingredients to perform or do something immediately at their beck and call, right? But Krishna provides it over time, we can see. Srila Prabhupada ostensibly came with nothing. But in due course of time, he was given everything, at least from a material perspective, facility. Right? So in that regard, we can use Srila Prabhupada as an example of somebody who Krishna preserved what he had. He had the intelligence, he had the faith, he had the conviction, he had the determination. And Krishna supported those. Although even Prabhupada was challenged. Right? There were times when Prabhupada would go to the Scindia Steamship Company office to see what time the next boat was returning to India. Right? So you know, people sometimes paint a picture of Prabhupada as Superman. Right? But which is an artificial construct of who Prabhupada really was. Certainly Prabhupada was empowered, but he himself said, when I came off the boat, I didn't know which way to turn, didn't know which way to go. So, but yet Prabhupada knew what his mission was. He knew what he was there to achieve. When he was talking to Mr. Rubens, the train driver or whatever, conductor or whatever it was, he told him there are farms, there are temples, there are devotees all over the world. So Prabhupada knew what he was doing, but still didn't have all of the facility immediately available to him. And so we can see how Krishna preserved his integrity, his devotion, his determination, his mission to his guru, right? And in due course of time, Krishna made arrangements to provide for everything. So in that way we can appreciate Prabhupada. Krishna preserved what he carried and he provided what he lacked. How's that sound? Off the top of my head. And sometimes, you know, just stuff happens. But I'll tell you a story. I can tell you a lot of stories, actually. But once upon a time, I used to sell paintings. We used to sell paintings. And I decided that, and it must have been prior to going to India, and every one of us was given a weekly quota, right? And you had to achieve that quota, which is above what one would normally collect in a week, and over a period of say 6 or 7 or 8 weeks, maybe a bit longer, a couple of months, January and February, the extra funds would pay for your fare to go to India. It wasn't a hard and fast rule, but that was kind of, you tried to get your quota. I think my quota was about $1,200, selling at $1,200 worth of paintings. So at the beginning of the week I decided, yeah, I'm going to do it. And I worked really hard. And I think by Saturday I had sold about $600 worth of paintings. Maybe more. But I hadn't got my quota, so I was feeling bad. So I thought, okay, and it was Saturday. We used to do Harinam on Friday and Saturday nights, but because of that collection quota, we were kind of on a bit of a marathon. So we didn't come back on Fridays. We would come back on Saturdays. And then on Saturday night, we went out on Harinam, whole temple pretty much. And the community of devotees might not have been more than 60. Not many. And 60 certainly didn't go out on Harinam, but it would be 20, it would be a lot of devotees. So I thought, and I liked Harinam, I liked to chant Hare Krishna, but I thought, I didn't do my quota. I'll just distribute back to Godhead magazines. In those days, we used to just hand them out. Like, we didn't ask people for donations or whatever. And I thought, this is my penance for not getting my quota. I'll just hand it out back to Godhead magazines. So anyway, at one point, this gentleman came up to me, American, and he said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm just handing out back to Godhead magazines. And he said, are you selling them? I said, no, I'm just giving them out. He said, and he took one and he said, and here, this is for you. And he gave me a note, right? Crumpled up note. So I took it, I didn't look at it. And then he went on his way, and I thought, I better have a look and see what he gave me. And I unrolled the note, and he'd given me $100. Right, this is $100 in 1982 or 1 or whatever, right? 82 probably, or 83, around about that time. So $100 US, I suppose. Woo-wee. And then I realised, I busted my gut basically to try and collect $1,200, right? And couldn't do it. And then this fella just walked up to me and gave me $100. So I thought, Krishna's in control, and anything can happen, right? And anybody can be inspired. So despite my effort, and then when I decided I won't do anything, I'll just hand out back to God, and somebody walks up and gives me $100. I realised that, we can't think we're the doers. We have to sometimes put ourselves in Krishna's hands and be an instrument in his plans, and let Krishna make the arrangements for our success, ultimately. Yeah. Anything else? Any other thoughts? You're not thinking?
No thought.
No thought.
No thoughts much for me to say.
Yep. So, we want to follow the path of bhakti. We want to relish the nectar of service. We already are. We like to serve. One of the characteristics of the devotees, they like to serve. And they, what is it, Pariyupasate Sradadana Matparamaha. With faith, accepting Krishna as the Supreme. They completely engage in devotional service. So that's what we aspire and should try to do. And in that way we'll become very dear to Krishna. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Kirtan, Adelaide. Leave a like and subscribe.